Really, like if you ever want to get together and study, I don't know.
I would be game for that, yeah.
All right, let's get started. We're going to finish chapter 2 today. Subjects are right up there. There's no chance William, Alex A, or Nanika walked in, right? Okay, sure. And then, let's see, Wednesday we start chapter 11, and we're jumping to 11 because we're already getting heavy into the Investopedia, and this will kind of help you. Chapter 11 will start to help you with that a little bit. Actually, chapter 12, when we get to stocks, is when it will really. And then we have our second quiz on February 14th, which is a Wednesday, a week from this Wednesday.
It's crazy.
All right, where do I start today? Let's see.
I think she's going so
Do something fun, Investopedia. Let's take a look. Letitia. She in this class or the other?
What?
Letitia. Did you pronounce it right?
Letitia? Was that?
Is she in this class? Is that you?
She's in your other class.
She's in the other class? Thank you.
I think that was
Let me leave. All right. Still in first place, but does everybody know what's been happening today and last Friday?
No. What happened? No.
There's the Dow
Oh, no.
right there. All right, so you have a good idea of what's been happening. I'm going to jump to, we can always look at this chart. Let's see, I'm going to go right over here. I'm going to find a nice high spot right there. It says it opened up at, well, the high for this day, which is, where's it at here? 2-1. Is that Thursday? So this was the day after our last lecture. At about, let's say, during the day it hit 26, I'm going to round, 26,296. 26,296 is where the Dow was on Thursday. Today, it's at, is that accurate today? What time does it say up there? 4 o'clock? Oh yeah, that's right there. 24,341. Let me look at that again to make sure. Boy, that looks. Is that crazy? Is that really 24,344?
Yeah.
Wow. That's had a big drop in the last couple hours. 24,344. 24,344. Okay. The numbers don't really mean anything until you turn them into a percentage. That's just today's percentage that you're looking up there. I want to show you what it's been in less than a week. So what we do is we find the difference from where the Dow was to where it's at, and then we divide that difference from the past. It's what percent from where it was. So, you ready? I'm going to take 26,296. Now this is, the reason this calculation, where it was, where it's at, divided the difference, divided by where it was, is so important is because on your paper, this is what you're going to do with your portfolio. Where it was, where you finished, divided by where it was. Same formula. So 26,296 minus 24,344 equals 1952, 1,952, divided by where it was, 26,296 equals, so I divided by that one right there, equals 0.07, is that what it says? 0.074, wow, 2. I stay at 2 or do I go up to 3 here if I'm rounding? Because the next digit, is less than 5, so you stay. Now I'm moving the decimal 2 places, which is multiplying by 100, and now I'm adding the percent symbol. Do not add it until you move that decimal. We talked about this last week. I mentioned it the week before. I said there has been such a run that this market's been going up that it has to eventually go back down. And that it's got to be coming. I said I didn't know if it's going to happen during this semester or not, but it's most likely going to happen this year. This 7.42%, that's a pretty big deal in less than a week. That's huge. They call it a true correction when it hits 10%. And when we get past 10%, you're getting into, I can't remember what the target is, but I think when you get over 20%, you're kind of a crash. And at the end of 2008, it was almost 40%. So you can see how bad things crashed so fast at the end of the year 2008.
And that 10% is based on 1 week's worth?
Now, 10% in a very short period of time.
Okay.
It could be a month, it could be a week, but you know, people want to make 10% in a year. So to lose 7% in less than a week is a big deal. Something's going on. The bad news is, just about anything you owned in stocks from last Wednesday to today, you probably lost some money. Odds are huge that you lost money because almost everything was going down and losing money during this period. So that was the whole concept of selling half when you made a big gain. Before it goes down, you don't want to leave everything out there that could be given back. So let's look at a couple. She's not in this class, but she's in first place. Is this her? Yeah. And here's her history. I want to look at her portfolio. So now I'm going to make this smaller so it appears correctly. Let's see. Can you see everything now? We can. So as you can see, today, I need to refresh this though because this was as of now I realize I opened these all up over an hour ago. Let's see what happens. Wow. It said $198, now it's $312. I gotta refresh all of these. She lost $312 today. Just today. So she went from having all those gains, that everything she was invested in, to where now it's an overall loss of $67 because of today. Just today alone. And she had, let's go back to the, don't forget the rankings are always a day behind. 10,507. So today she's at, which one did I just refresh? This one? Now she's at 10,195. So it all depends how everyone else did. And I started going down the list. So that's 400, 300, like it says, 300 and some dollars. I started going down the list to see if there's anybody, because I remember we talked about somebody who had everything sold, who said, hey, I made some money, I want to get out of the market because who knows, it could go down, which was a good shot. And I started going down the list, I couldn't figure out who it was, but I found one person, she's not in this class. Oh, there you are, you usually sit over here. All right, and you were out of it, you got out of everything. So you're probably one of the few people that didn't lose money today. And what made you decide, and did I get your buys? I did not. What made you decide to sell it? I remember looking at your history, you had done it even, I think more than a week ago. And you had made some money and you said, I don't want to own anything right now. Yeah, you sold on the 26th, so more than a week ago. Do you remember what made you decide not to have anything? Was it something we said in here in class, or you just was waiting to see what would happen?
No, I just decided to sell everything because I don't usually go to the website and check the stock market, so I just.
You said I just don't want to risk anything because you haven't had time to check it as often as you should, or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And it worked out for you. But now, what do you do now that is down this much? So you got to say to yourself, could this go down farther? Could this start heading back up? Or what? And if you own a stock, and let's look at a couple real quick, that lost a lot of money today. Let's see, who's this? This is the person in first place. Let me find someone. Rachel, are you in this class? All right, you ready?
Sure.
You, let me refresh this. You had lost $130 earlier today. Let me refresh it. You lost $201 today. And you got hit hard on all of these. Almost 4.5% on Netflix, 4% on eBay. And this, I know we haven't talked about yours because I don't remember talking about Sharkfly, so we must not have looked at it before because I would have asked questions. But you've lost almost 4% on that also today. You didn't have a lot of money in these, luckily, less than 2,000, but today was all about losses. Now you're still have gain overall from these stocks, but you lost, you lost almost half your money that you had gained. Look, she's real casual. Easy come, easy go. It's not even real money.
I just let it happen. I don't
Okay, now what are you going to do? You just keep letting it brew?
Yes.
I might.
Who said that? Yes, you said that?
Yeah, I'm just kidding now.
No, I
I'm
don't
just
know.
sarcastic.
Why not? I mean,
Go back up,
this has
right?
happened to me in real life, and I've said, well, I've already lost this much. I mean, what is the probability I'm going to lose more? I mean, if I sell now and it goes back up, I'll regret it. So I don't know, do you sell half? Is it the same philosophy when you make a big gain real fast, you want to get half out of there? Well, when you make a big loss, do you get half out of there in case things go down? So you have to say to yourself, you have to say, do I think that the market's going to keep going down, or do I think it's going to go up? And then you make some decisions. And you got to have a transaction for February, so this could be a good time when you've gone down 7.5% in such a short period of time. Will it come back up, or do we have further to go? Go ahead.
What would you do?
If I had to, I've been watching the market every day because I can't help myself since, I'm going back to when I was in college probably, and just can't help myself. I just love money so much that I end up watching the market, and I used to invest. Every day I was making changes for a while, for several years. So I've seen almost everything. And so there's two scenarios here. This could be what's called a hiccup, where it goes down sharply, but then it heads back up. But if it heads back up too fast, in most of the times in the past, that's telling me that you're looking at a bigger down following it. If it starts to head back up real slow, then it means this was just a correction and things are going to get back in line. Now let's pretend this is your real retirement. And let's say you're all in your 20s or 30s, let's say. All the advisors say, don't worry about it, just leave it there, it will come back eventually, that kind of thing. You're in for the long haul, look at the 20-year plan, 30-year plan, just ride it out. That's the philosophy. For this game, this is a whole different attitude. This game's all about short-term investing. It's all about how do you get in, get some profits, and get back out. Or do you stay into the end? But you're talking about 3 months. You don't, if you think this is going to eventually come back, eventually it may not be enough time for you. Because you're done April, I think the game ends like April 10th or 12th or something like that. So you've only got 2 months. And you want to try to make money in 2 months. So it's kind of all about just teaching you how the market works, teaching you how to buy and sell things, teaching you that there is a fee every time you do buy something and sell something, no matter how many shares it is, it's the same fee. Just getting you familiar, because when you retire, all of you are going to have to make these decisions. You're going to be at this human resource meeting, and you're on like your first day on the job, and they're going to say, how would you like your retirement distributed? We have a contract with this financial company, and here are 15 mutual funds that are being offered, and every time money gets put in there, we want to know what % of the money you want put into each mutual fund. And you're going to sit there and go, I have no idea, possibly. It depends how much you absorb from this class. And if you have no idea, they're going to say, well, we got to do something. And you'll start filling in, oh, let's put 50% of it here and 50% of it there, and let's see what happens. And then you're going to be encouraged to register online, to open up your account, so that you can decide what to do with the money for the rest of the time you're working with the company. And you can make changes at any time, but there's so many employees who go, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm just going to let it go, I don't even know what I'm doing. When you could have gone in there and said, uh-oh, there's going to be inflation. Anytime there's going to be inflation, I remember learning that you should never be in bonds. A couple of these mutual funds are in bonds. I better get them out of there and get them in something else. Or, hey, the market just crashed again, or we have another financial crash of some kind. Interest rates are going to be going down. I learned in that class, and you're going to get this in the next chapter, I learned in that class that any time interest rates are going to go down, and it's obvious that you want to be in bonds. I'm going to switch my money from the mutual funds that are in stocks to the mutual funds that are in bonds. And you will be able to capitalize on the knowledge and make more than just, I'm just going to leave it there and see what happens, because that's what everyone else is doing. Most people at companies with a retirement plan just make the initial investment decisions and then they don't even think about it. They just let it ride. And every 3 months they get a statement that says, oh, look, I got more money in there. They don't even, a lot of people don't know if they made the money because their investments went up or just because more money got put in. Because every time payday comes, some of the money comes out of your check, maybe, if you selected that. It goes into it, so it makes it look like it's growing, but you don't know if it's growing from the investments because you haven't really analyzed the statement enough or maybe understand it to see why you have more money later. And if you have less money, that's a really bad sign because that means you lost so much money that the new money that was put in every time payday came between 3 months ago and now, you lost it all because of the decisions you made when you decided. And you could have went online and just went click, click, and moved it in a matter of minutes. And so that's why we got to get to those other chapters. You've got to learn this stuff because you're all going to face it. You're going to have that human resource meeting, and you're going to go, whoa, what's going on here? And you have this few minutes there where you got to decide how you want your retirement. And you write this little thing, you sign it, and then you have to get it all set up online so you can make changes, which a lot of people won't do. So I'm trying to get you to understand the kind of changes you should make through your career so you can capitalize on just the basic knowledge. When interest rates are going to go up, when interest rates are going to go down, what to do after a market goes down a lot over a short period of time. In this case, if I thought this is that this is the bottom and that it's not going to go down anymore or go back up sharply and head down even more, this then would be a buying opportunity. And I would start switching my mutual funds in my retirement program from, let's say you had some, there's one that's like a savings account. It's called a money market fund, which a lot of employees will go, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm going to put it in that account. And it earns about the same as what a savings account would earn at a bank, which right now is about 1% a year. But everybody, all the employees who had their money in this money market fund didn't lose any money in the last 5 days, 7 days, because it's a really safe investment, but it only earns 1%. But you didn't lose anything today, while all your coworkers lost 7.5% in the last 5 days. And right now, if you have this knowledge, you go, maybe this is a buying opportunity, you go online and switch some of your retirement money from that safe savings account to some of the mutual funds related to stock, maybe 50% of it, and say, now on the way back up, I'm going to capitalize. That's a way to look at it too. But at this point, I got to see what happens after today so I can decide, do we have another big fall coming bigger than this one? Or is this going to keep going? Or is this going to be, if this starts to be a gradual, slow upturn, when we get back to where, this is at 25, I'm going to say maybe I should buy this, because if it takes a whole week or longer, 2 weeks to get to 25, that means we probably don't have another big crash coming, and I should get back, start buying things. That's historically what has happened. History never for sure tells you what's going to happen in the future, though. Anything can happen. Seems like a lot of things do repeat themselves. All right. Any questions about your investments? Everybody understand what's going on? I did one more. Who's it? Well, he's not in this class. He's in the other class. He's in last place. Look at where he's at. He's lost $2,000. And the stock that's killed him, everybody see? What? This is the history. Let me get the portfolio. Is this him? Yeah. Tell me which, wait, let me refresh it. Tell me which stock has killed him. He made a bad decision. He doesn't want to get out of it because he said, I've lost, what's going on? Is this not refreshing? Says, I've lost so much already. He says, what is it? You see it?
The American Express.
No.
Oh, no.
Is it? No.
Oh, I don't know.
Kodak.
Oh.
Look at that.
Yeah.
He was in at $4,500 or $4,600. This is all that's left out of that money. This is when you accidentally pick a stock at the wrong time because of whatever the circumstances are. Look at how much money you can lose in a very short period of time. This is real money. This always scares the heck out of me. And this is why I'm conservative with real money. And this is why you don't want to take the gamble and say, oh, I'm going to put my whole retirement in just mutual funds related to stocks. Because this could happen. What's nice about mutual funds when we get to that chapter is that a mutual fund manager that's managing that mutual fund that you selected is in probably like 100 different stocks. And that's called diversification, and it allows there to be less risk. Because if one of the stocks are like this, maybe the other 99 had nothing like that happen, and will keep kind of a balance to where the whole mutual fund doesn't have this huge downfall. And that's the advantage of mutual fund.
For the final project, will you give us the exact place where you want us to get those values from up there?
I got all these things. I got to change it because the 2-page paper just takes me too long to grade, so I got to change it to get it down to 1 page, which is, I'm sure, makes you happy too. And all of you won't do it till the night before school. So, anyway, don't forget, these are always a day behind, so it's not until tomorrow we'll see. There's going to be some changes here, I can tell, because there's a whole bunch of people, some have lost a ton of money today, and some have lost a little today, and very few people did not lose money today. Very few. So the ones who didn't lose money today are going to see their places rise only because so many people lost money, they're going to fall below them. I saw several portfolios that were above 10,000 that are no longer above 10,000 because of today. So just giving you a wake-up call. And what's funny is we just talked about that this is coming. So if you were thinking about selling something, last Wednesday, now it's too late. Kind of. All right, what's next on the list? Let's talk about chapter 2. We're going to finish it up. And don't forget we got an in-class today, so I want to make sure we have enough time. I'm already forgot what time this class is. 5:15? Budgets. I'm sure many of you have experimented with having a budget. And the number one reason I hear where people tell me that a budget doesn't work for them is because they don't keep track of what they spent their money on. Hey, I know I spent some money, but I can't remember exactly everything I bought. And so that's why using a budget ends up falling apart, because you're not keeping track of how well you did compared to the budget. So the key to budgeting is, hey, here's what I think my expenses are going to be for the following month, and then the key is keeping track of what you really spent your money on. Now, when you start working full-time, you're making good money, you're going to probably change your spending habits to use a credit card and then pay the credit card in full or something like that so that you don't get charged any interest. And the benefit of using that credit card, and it won't cost you anything if you do it right, as long as you pay it off in full, is that you get cash back, so it's like getting a discount for everything you buy, and you get at the end of the year, you get this statement that breaks all your expenses into categories, or each month you can look at what you spent your money on so that you can do your budgeting through that, and you only then have to keep track of anything you paid cash for. Well, I use my credit card for everything, and very few things I ever spent cash, so it's real easy for me to keep track of my expenses because everything's on my credit card statement. I can just look. So that would be the way to do, a good way to do it in the future. But for now, you're still paying a lot of cash for a lot of things. So I'm jumping to, this is not on the PowerPoint, this is not in your book. This is me telling you that I am suggesting you form a new habit. If you start now and make it a habit, whether there's any benefit to it or not, in the future, when you start using credit card all the time, there will be a benefit. And if you already have the new habit in place, you won't have to force yourself to try to create a new habit. And that's how we are as humans. The new habit I'm suggesting is, anytime you buy anything, cash or credit card, they always say, would you like a receipt? And most people say, no thank you, and I want you to change that habit to yes please. Crazy, huh? And you're going to have these every day. I have this pocket of receipts. I obviously spent some money today already. Right? I always have a pocket of receipts, and I have this box at home, kind of in the corner where hopefully no one sees it just because it looks trashy. And I take the box, and I take my receipts, and I put them in the box. And that's my habit. That's the habit I formed, and it's an automatic for me. It's like I don't even have to think about it. I always say yes, and I always take the receipts out when I get home and throw them in the box. Now, I can't tell you how many times going to that box and finding an old receipt has just been a blessing. I mean, it's like maybe at least 3 times a year this comes up, where I'm so happy I kept that receipt. I'm so happy. And even though my system sucks because it takes me a long time to find it, but I know it's in that box. Because I don't switch boxes until the new year. So when it's December, I have to go through a whole year's worth of receipts to find what I'm looking for. But it ends up being a blessing for one reason or another. Things come up. But what's nice is you're all going to be having an audit someday in your life. Almost everybody has at least one. And there's the reason why you're going to go, wow, I'm being audited for my taxes from 4 years ago. And I've got to prove all these things I listed as expenses, or I itemized, or whatever it may be. I own this rental or something. And having that box of receipts that you put down the basement, you wrote the year on it, you taped it up, you're going to dig it out, and you're going to pass that audit. And you're going to win that audit because you're forming this new habit.
What's an audit?
An audit? It's when the IRS government says, we think you cheated on your taxes, even if you didn't. There's something unusual about it, and everybody will go through it because they put everybody through at least one in your life. And I've been through 2 or 3. And it's all about how well you keep your records if you want to win. If you don't win because you didn't keep good records, they then say, okay, here's how much you owe us, and since it was from 3 years ago, here's the penalty, which is huge, and oh, by the way, you owe us 3 years interest. You can't fight it. 3 years interest, even though you had no idea that this was 3 years ago, and the rate is outrageous. It's like a credit card rate, 19% a year or something. And you end up owing in interest and penalties as much as whatever it is they're going after because of something you claim that you now can't prove. So my suggestion is you start with the new habit of saying yes to the receipts for any reason, just to have that new habit, and have something at home you can just throw them in like it's no big deal, just so you have somewhere to go to find them if you ever have to. And once you're out there working, you're going to have a whole bunch of reasons why you're glad you did it. So there's the new habit, receipts. Budgets. Yes, the receipts can help you. If you get to a time where you go, God, I need to change my spending habits. If you have this new habit with receipts, you can go into the receipts and say, let's figure out what I spent, because here's what I thought I should have spent. And that will help you then be able to do the budgeting. What I want to point out about budgeting, I'm going to page 56. With the new text, it's going to be around 56 if you have an old edition. What I want you to learn from this chapter is the appropriate way to compare what you've spent compared to what you budgeted. So I'm jumping down to these items down here, these fixed expenses, or no, these variable expenses. You know, the fixed expenses are things you always know is going to be the amount. Hey, I have rent. My rent is always this amount. And so I know that's how much I'm going to pay. And you're not going to have any variance. This column's a variance. What is the difference between what you spent and what you budgeted? And for those fixed expenses, there's no variance. I mean, you knew you were going to spend $518, and you spent $518. You knew your property taxes are $115 a month, and you spent $115 a month. You know, you knew your auto loan was $144, you spent $144. That's pretty consistent, but it's the variable expenses that, you know, you're not totally sure of. Food. This person thought they're going to spend $402 for the month in food, which is a lot of money for food. They actually spent, they go through the receipts, and I really want to see where I'm off on what I thought I was going to spend. They really spent $417. Did they spend more or less than what they thought they were going to spend?
More.
More. So it's a negative 15, but the word is deficit. 2 words you got to learn: surplus and deficit. Deficit is whenever you spend more than you budgeted to spend. You went over budget. $15 deficit on the food. Let me grab another one here. Utilities. We don't know for sure what our electric and gas is going to be. It depends how cold it's going to be outside. You know, you're gonna have your own place, you're gonna have your utility bill. They said, well, in February of last year, it was about $172. Oh, the weather wasn't as bad. I only had to spend $164. They spent less than what they budgeted, so that $8 is a surplus. Spent less than what you budgeted, you got this $8 surplus. You're under budget, all right. But you went over 15 on the food. And then it's putting them all together, your surplus and your deficit, to see where you landed. Clothing, what else? Transportation, healthcare, what was that transportation? That's a big one. That must be gasoline and everything. I'm too close. Is that 460 or 480? 460? 471, that makes sense. Went $11 over budget, deficit or surplus? Deficit. Where's the big one? Here it is. Entertainment, yeah, budgeted entertainment. I know I had spent a lot on entertainment when I was just in college and just out of college. So, you know, that includes drinks, yes. 172, spent 201, $29 over budget, deficit. And that happens. Usually it's late at night when you're heading to the ATM for some crazy reason, because everybody's going to eat at the Coney Island or some crazy, stay up till 4 in the morning. What else we got here? Gifts, we get that. $23 up. We didn't spend as much on clothes. We put all our deficits and all of our surpluses together, and where's the overall? Our variable expenses for the month were supposed to be $18.10. It was $18.27. We ended up with a deficit of $17, which isn't bad. But what's nice about this is if you try this for a couple of months, if you ever think, I don't know where my money's going, I don't know why I never have money to save, I don't know what's going on, putting a budget together and truly keeping track of what you spent will answer those questions for you, and then you will change your decision habits. You don't have to do it after a couple of months. You just may do it for 2 or 3 months just to see. It will bring it clear to you as to where you're spending money and why you don't have any money left over every month. It's through the budgeting process. And look, where is the very first thing on the budget up there is this person says, I want to have an emergency fund. The very first item. And they're saying, I'm putting $115 a month into the emergency fund because that's my number one budgeted item, is to get to that emergency fund. And sure enough, they did that. 115 and 115. So, you're going to have a homework problem. I opened up the homework because I want everybody to do well in this homework. So one of the first questions on your homework is to compare budget to what was actually spent, give the variance, and then tell me if it's a deficit or a surplus. If you could see this, you would know what I'm talking about. Here we go. Here's the amount budgeted, here's the actual, there's the variance. Tell me if it's a surplus or a deficit. I don't care if this is a minus or a plus. It's this word, how much is the difference, and that word right there, deficit or surplus. That's part of your homework. Next, this one now starts to get a little harder. We're going to slide 13. Those are printed off. Everybody okay on budgets? Any other questions on budgets? Okay. Cash inflows and cash outflows. I'm not a big fan of keeping track of cash inflows and cash outflows because to me that's kind of a lot like budgeting. But I need for you to be able to recognize a cash inflow versus a cash outflow versus a balance sheet asset compared to a balance sheet liability. Last week I taught you everything about a balance sheet. I said there's assets and there's liabilities. And what do you got to do to calculate your net worth? That's it. Assets minus liability, she says. Exactly. That's your net worth. Again, go into the homework. Why did I bring this up? Because on your homework, you've got 4 questions where it's asking you, the first one wants you to calculate net worth. The second one says, hey, I'll give you net worth and assets, but you calculate liabilities. Here's net worth, and this one you got to calculate assets. You're given 2 parts of the puzzle. You need to come up with the 3rd part. That's part of your homework. Show your calculation, how you got the number. That's all. It's all about showing your work. So, inflows and outflows, assets and liabilities. You have to hear the words, or at least see and read the words, to be able to know the difference. For example, paid my car payment $145 this month. That's a cash outflow. It's money being spent on something that's owed the car loan. But it could say, balance on my car loan, still owe $4,300. It's all about the car loan still, but this time it was giving you the amount owed. That makes it a liability on the balance sheet. Remember, on the balance sheet, assets are the market value of anything you own, if you could sell it. Liabilities are anything you owe and how much you owe. Cash inflow is any money you receive coming in. For example, received net pay today, $1,000. That would be cash inflow. My checking account has $2,500 in it. That's asset. It's just expressing how much you have in the account. Not that the money just came in. Let me do another cash outflow here. Cell phone, no, that's a bad one. Hang on. Let me think. I'll do cell phone, I guess. Cell phone bill, $52. Paid cell phone bill, $52. Cash outflow. Cell phone bill, owe $52. That's just saying you owe it. It's not saying you paid it today. It's saying you're going to pay it, but you owe $52 on the cell phone bill. That's a liability. So it's how it's expressed. I found a couple more in your book. I want to make sure everybody gets this because part of your homework is you have a whole list of items, and it's asking you to figure out what each item is. And you have 4 choices: asset, liability, cash inflow, cash outflow, and then you add up your 4 totals once you break them all into their 4 categories, whichever. And each one of them only belong in one category. So I'm on page 65 at the bottom. I want to talk about some of these. Ready? I'm going to add a word, because if this were a quiz, it would probably be an additional word to make it a little more obvious. Paid rent for the month, $650. Which asset, liability, inflow, outflow?
If you paid it, it's outflow.
Outflow. Yep. Paid rent for the month, $650. Spent for food, $345. Outflow. Cash outflow is talking about how much you paid for food. It doesn't say, oh, on a bill, $300 and some that I spent on food. That would be a liability. But it's saying you spent that much on food. Let me find out. Credit card balance, $235. Liability is just giving you how much is owed on it. That's how much is owed. It didn't say you just paid that much on the credit card or you just charged something on the credit card. It's saying that's how much is owed. It'd be a liability.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So credit card balance, that means that it's something that you owe?
This is how much the balance is if you were to pay it off today.
Oh, okay.
That's the balance that it would owe if you were paying off today.
So that's not what's in your account? Because that would be a
That'd be a
asset.
liability. If you were doing your balance sheet, it would be how everything that you owe and how much it is you owe if you were paying it off. That's how liabilities are done on balance sheets. Everything you owe and how much you would owe if you were paying it off in full right then.
Okay.
Video equipment, $2,350. Say it again? Asset. It doesn't say you just bought it. It's stating it as if this is its value. And so it'd be an asset. It's basically saying this is how much you could sell that video equipment for if you had to sell it. Clothing purchase, $110. Cash outflow. Money you just spent on clothes. Value of a stock investment, $860. This is the value of it, asset, because you own it, it has value, and if you needed to sell your stock off to get that money, you could. So it's an asset. Here we go. Student loan payment, $80. Student loan balance would be the liability. This is student loan payment, so it's a cash outflow. Now, if this said student loan balance, $3,200, that would be a liability. That's the amount you owe if you were to pay it off today. But if it's a loan payment, it's cash outflow. Is everybody getting this? Should I talk about a couple more, or we all got it? A couple more? I can see some looks. All I'm getting is body language and nothing else here. Hang on. Now there's the balance on the education loan, 2,160. There's liability. Monthly take-home salary, 2,185. Cash inflow. Didn't say this is how much we have in our checking account, or this is how much is in the savings. It just talked about the money we probably just received, which is our net take-home pay for the month, $2,185. Which, by the way, you've got to learn to make your money last the whole month. I know a lot of you probably either have jobs or had jobs where you're getting paid either once a week or every 2 weeks. Many companies are going to the pay of once a month plan. They realize the huge savings to not have to run payroll 26 times a year and only have to run it 12 times a year. There's such a huge savings when they have more than 100 employees that a lot of them are going to 1 month pay. This whole university, for all of the faculty and staff, are once a month pay. So you got to learn how to make your money last for a whole month, because you're not getting paid again until a month later. Let's see. Telephone bill paid for the month, $65. Cash outflow. It's talking about what you just paid for the bill. Hang on, let's do one here. Lunches and parking at work, $180 for the month. What do you have? It can't be an asset, because you can't sell your lunches and your parking at work. So let's count that one out. It's either liability or it's cash outflow. If this said lunches and parking at work that you owe on, then it would be a liability. But this is talking about that you paid this much. You went through your receipts and saw that you paid that much. That's a cash outflow. These are tough. If this will be on your quiz, by the way, it won't be as tough as this. I'll probably have an additional word that says, paid $180 for lunches and parking at work for the month. It will be obvious then that's a cash outflow. Just want to make sure, hopefully you're writing notes on this, because a lot of these will be darn similar to what you may see in your future. I've just noticed. Savings account balance, $1,890. Asset. It's not an inflow, it's not an outflow, it's just giving you the balance of something you could go get your hands on. That's why it's an asset. All right, there they are. There's the four, and that's how you recognize them. So that's cash inflow, outflow. We talked about budgeting, we talked about receipts. We're going to financial records, going to slide 4. If anybody printed. Organizing your records. I'm trying to think of the most common bill most of you may have. I don't know if you pay for your own cell phone. What other bills? A credit card, maybe some of you have credit cards and you might get a bill on. Car insurance, you get a bill on, there you go. Is it, do you get a bill every month, or is it every 6 months, or how's car insurance? Once a month, okay. A lot of people, and I was guilty of this when I was really young, is you pay the bill, and then you just take it, rip it up, and throw it away. A lot of people do that. You need to also change that habit, and I use the same box I put my receipts in. Maybe that's why it takes me so long to find a receipt. Every single bill I get for the whole year, after I pay it, I always write down on the bill the date I paid it and how I paid it, and if there's a confirmation number, because I pay a lot of my bills online, so I always have confirmation numbers, and I'll put that on the bill, and then I get rid of all the extra paperwork in the envelope, and I get rid of that, and I just take the bill with my writing on it, and I put it in that box. For the whole year, I got every bill I received with those kind of notes on it in the box. And there will be a bill once every 3 to 4 years where they claim it was never paid. I don't know, has anybody ever experienced this already? So you will experience it. It's 99% chance you're going to hear in your life when you start getting a lot of bills because you're working full time and you're in your own place, that they're going to say you never paid that bill. And you're going to be so glad you got that box. Because not only can you say, here's the date I paid it, here's how I paid it, here's who I paid it with or spoke to on the phone, or here's my confirmation number. Man, does that pretty much take care of any problems. So what I'm trying to say is from now on, also try to establish the habit of no longer pay a bill and throw it away. That same box that you're hopefully going to change your habit and say yes to every receipt and throw it in, take that bill, write notes on it, and throw it in there after you pay it. And put that in the box too. And I want to go to, hang on, I'm going to slide, I'm going to jump back and forth. 14? No, not 14. Which one? Hang on. 8. Not just, it says, keeping your tax returns and any supporting data and receipts and bills related to your tax return for 7 years. I keep that whole box of everything in it for 7 years. At the end of the year, I'll tape it up and I'll write the year on it and I put it in the basement with the rest of the boxes that I always forget to throw away even when 7 years go by because I'm a hoarder. But you should keep it for 7 years. And when that audit comes, you're going to be so happy that you have a box that's 7 years old to get through that audit without being charged penalties and interest and all the other money they're going to try to go after you for that really you really shouldn't owe, but you can't prove it. That's why you got to keep your box for 7 years. Now, I'm not saying you're going to do a box. Whatever your system is that you develop, keep it for 7 years.
How much is that when you get audited? Like how much can that be?
Oh, thousands of dollars. And if you can't pay it right away, if you lose your audit and you can't pay it right away, they'll work out a payment plan with you, but you're still accumulating interest. So it's and you can't fight it. It's the government. It's like odds are against you. But my advice about an audit, having been through a couple, is read the fine print on the supporting paperwork when you get that letter. By the way, they never call you to start an audit. That's a fake call. They're going around a lot right now in our country, and do not fall for it. They're just trying to get your personal information to take over your identity. Let me add to this, though. When you get the letter of a true audit, you'll know it's true. I mean, it's pretty obvious the government's having the paper is pretty obvious. When you get it in the fine print, you got to look for it. They offer you some free help. Call this little toll-free number. You can barely read it. Call this toll-free number. You're calling Philadelphia. We have a team of lawyers who are there to help people through audits. And nobody ever sees it. But if you call that number, you're going to be so happy you did, because they will help you get through that audit, and it's free. But if you don't have the supporting receipts or bills to prove you paid and whatever it is you wrote off on those taxes, even they can't help you. So that's why you want to start keeping things for that audit that's going to be in your future. Maybe 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, that may be your second one. You will. Almost everybody ends up seeing one eventually. So 7 years. Now, go ahead.
Oh, I just, since you brought up all those IRS scams, like there were a lot of old people who get scammed because these call centers like out in the Far East will say, oh, well, you owe the IRS $1,000, so go to the gas station and get all these little gift cards.
That's right. Or money orders, or do you have a PayPal account, or they'll try whatever, and the IRS would never have you do gift cards, would never have you do a money order. They would never have you do PayPal. That would never happen.
And why can't they use a call center like all the way out in like Bangladesh or Pakistan?
But you can't tell, because it's so easy to get a phone number in any area code just using, I'm trying to think, Google Voice hands out numbers like it's candy. And anybody from another country could get a number. It looks like the call's coming legitimately from Washington, D.C., or from Philadelphia, or from New York. It's the same area code and everything. You think it's real. And with elderly people, these scammers love to make them feel afraid. And so they'll say, we're going to have the local police come and arrest you. They'll go that far just to scare somebody to get that payment as soon as possible to get this taken care of. And protect your grandparents, protect your parents, and tell them if they ever get calls like this to talk to you and check it out, and you realize this is most likely a scam. And tell them, just sit back, because if it's not a scam, someone real will contact you, and you don't have to worry about it. So just sit back and let's see what happens. Don't react right away.
Some cashiers even say, like, I tried to stop these people from buying, and they just won't listen. They'll just go ahead and do it anyway, and that's just the really cringy part.
Yeah, the older people get, and my parents get this way, they're in their, well, my father just passed, but my mother's in her 80s, they become more and more afraid of just, like, she'll never ever use an ATM.
ever, or never has, never will, and thinks the money will never get to where it needs to go. You know, if I put money in that machine, it will never get in my account. And I'm trying to say, when I put money in the machine, it's in my account on my statement as if I was right in front of a teller at that moment, and even though I'm 3 states away. And it almost like the second I put it in that machine, it shows up on my statement, and I'm earning interest on it right away. You know, back when interest was higher, that was a big deal. So that's just how people get when they get older, and help them, help protect them, and get them through that fear, and tell them to talk to you if they get this kind of a call, because they are just rampant right now. The calls are coming. I'm hearing about all kinds of them out there from, and they're able to figure out who the elderly are, and they're looking, I mean, people from other countries who are trying to pull these scams are looking at obituaries, getting names and cities and figuring it out from there. I mean, any information, once you have the initial information, you can find out, you can pretty much put the puzzle together on the internet and find anybody, and then put the story together, and they'll believe, you know, an elderly person will believe them. And when someone dies at 85 and it lists surviving wife so-and-so, you know they're probably also in their 80s. They'll go after that person. They go, okay, this has got to be an elderly. It's the wife of the person who's 85 who just passed. We're going to go after that person. Now they start looking for that person's address, that person's phone number. They put together the whole scam. They try to find information. Is it your son, Michael? You know, oh yeah, well, that was in the obituary, of course. You know, that's how they knew who your son was. So there are so many of these going around. Help protect the elderly and bring it up and say, hey, bring it to my attention before you do react on it, and let me help you figure out if it's real or not.
Why is the rule 7 years? Can they audit you for money that's, you know?
There's debate on that.
Okay.
What happens after 7 years, the odds of you being audited, I think, go down to less than 1%.
Oh, okay.
But I can't remember for sure if there's truly a law, but there may be even a law that says after 7 years they can audit you.
Okay.
And the IRS has changed their ways over the last 10 years to where they say now after 3 years, the probability of being audited for something 4 years ago or more go way down. That usually it's in the first 3 years. But they've been doing so many layoffs in the IRS, and they're so been reducing their budget that I think it may go back to where you could be audited for something 5 years ago, because they're just so far behind. They have computer software that's looking for red flags, something that doesn't make sense. And what a lot of these softwares do is they compare someone's taxes to the previous 2 or 3 years. And if something doesn't make sense compared to their taxes the year before, the year before, the year before, the software will raise a red flag, and then a human gets involved to analyze it and say, this doesn't make sense. How could they have that much in home interest paid when there was only this much and this much? How could how could it go up when most people who pay interest on a home loan, the amount they pay in interest goes down each year? That would be a red flag. They're probably claiming more in home interest than they really pay. And so the 4 years go by and someone accidentally claimed an extra $1,000 in interest and didn't have to pay taxes on that $1,000. 4 years go by. Hey, not only do you owe us the taxes on that $1,000, which is like 30% of it, so that'd be $300, but the penalty and interest is like another $300. So now you owe us $600 on something that you would have only owed $300 on. And that's how it works with the government. And that's why just be honest on your taxes. That's my theory. Just why cheat if it can come back to haunt you? The penalty and interest they get to charge is like robbery. And so why be subject to that? Once you realize you got charged 100% interest and penalties that you paid double, you'll go, God, I'm never going to cheat again, because I could lose whatever I'm going to gain by cheating. I could owe that plus the whole amount again and then some. So that that's the lesson that people end up learning. So keep your records, and I want to point out something else. A lot of insurance companies, when you start having home insurance or renter's insurance, will say, hey, make a list of everything you own that you would claim on insurance if a fire were to happen. And they even say, take pictures. Now that everybody has phones, take a picture. Well, what you got to realize is that all those pictures or that list could burn in the same fire with all your stuff that you're about to claim. So I always tell people, and the PowerPoint says, get a safety deposit box and put that list in there, and or put something, a flash drive with pictures in a safe deposit box that costs money. put it in the cloud. There's free cloud space for every single human on all these different sites. They offer 1 gig, 2 gigs. Apple has free iCloud space. I think it's up to 5 gigs. I think Yahoo or Google's offering free cloud space up to, anybody know, 5 gigs, something like that.
I think it's more.
Pardon me?
I think it might be more. I'm not sure.
And you can have you can have multiple accounts if you need more space. But all that important stuff, anything you say, wow, how would I prove I own this really expensive computer if I don't have the receipt because it burned up in the fire, and I don't have the computer because it burned up in the fire? How would I prove it? You're gonna have to, you gotta have a way, and the pictures that are in a remote server called the cloud would allow you to access all those pictures. Here's what I had in my home. These pictures I just took a year ago. Look at that computer. Look at that couch. Look at that stereo. And that's how you would then get full value on the claims on your insurance. So that's the stories you should use on things that are important that you think someday you might claim on insurance. Important documents that are a big deal. If you claim something that's $2,000 expense on your taxes, you may take a picture of the receipt or whatever the bill is that you paid or whatever form you got, because it would probably burn up too. So put it in the cloud. So a financial record system, develop something, how long to keep all these records and which ones, put that together, form a new habit, receipts, bills, and that's it. That finishes chapter 2. We can do the in-class assignment. Let me make sure. That is it. There's your safe deposit box. Forget about that. That costs money. It will always be there. That thing's fireproof and breaking proof, but it costs money. All right, you ready for today? Break into groups. I don't want anyone to work alone. So get into groups of 3 or at least 2, 3, 4. Get ready. Everybody hands into individual 1. We haven't done this in a long time. I'm reviewing. But do not hand it in until you feel everybody in your group has the correct answer, and you get up and compare with at least 2 other groups in other parts of the room before you hand it in. Help them if they have a different answer. We still haven't all got 100 on this once yet. So let's do this. Are you ready? Is there anybody trying to work alone? I think anybody trying to sit by themselves. You got somebody? Will you guys work? All right. Okay, here it is. Oh, wait a minute. What else do I want to say about your homework? Oh, all right. Remember those ratios from that page from last week? Here's all the items you got to, if it's asset, liability, cash inflow, cash outflow, and this homework to do in 2 days. Oh, this one's asking you to do the debt payments ratio, but where I'm asking you why, there was something about the debt payments ratio last week that I said is the golden rule, one of the most important things you're going to learn the whole semester. This is where I want you to talk about it. You're going to calculate the debt payments ratio and compare it to something, the golden rule from last week. Don't say it out loud. And that's due in 2 days, that assignment, that whole thing there. Here's today. All right? This is your first problem where the compounding is not annual. Here you go. The compounding is not annual. Always on these problems, you give me the table, you give me the percent you're using so I know which column you use, you give me the period you use so I know which row you used, then you give your calculation. And remember, the compounding's not annual. I've been prepping you for this because it's going to be on your next quiz, so I want to make sure you had it.